Hello and welcome to another episode of Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow process, and hopefully buy really happy. I am again in the uncomfortable side of the desk for me, and today I am joined by a man who might have been in real estate longer than I've been alive. And I say that not only to highlight his longevity, but also to highlight that not many people actually last in this industry a long time. And I think actually the longer he's in it, his reputation continues to grow stronger. If you've met him, you like him. If you've worked with him, you probably love him. Craig Loudon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tam. What a great introduction.
How long have you been doing this?
36 years.
Okay. All right, well, I'm 37, so not quite. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What has changed in 36 years?
The big one is realestate.com.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't think that's anybody's surprise, and mobile phones.
And mobile
They're
phones.
the two biggest.
Are they good changes?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I think they're good changes, specifically realestate.com, because of the amount of information available to people now. 36 years ago, people didn't have the same amount of at the fingertips info. They had to rely on us guys to get the info, basically. Now it's all there.
So that's why you still give the information out, but not many others do.
Well, I think...
It's a nice little layup for you there, Craig.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's all available, isn't it?
It is.
It's all available. The data's there at everybody's fingertips.
Okay. What hasn't changed in 36 years?
The buyers and the sellers, it's a major decision for them, whichever way they're going. I feel that any of us looking to buy or sell a home are probably a little bit out of our depth. That hasn't changed.
Talk to me about being out of your depth.
There's so much that goes into it. Do we speak of buyers? Do we speak of sellers? Both, I guess. It is a major happening in their life. Everybody knows that it's a major happening in their life. There's a lot of fear involved in buying a property. Have we paid too much? There's a lot of fear involved in selling a property. Have we sold too low? Should we have even sold at this time? So those emotions, for want of a better words, I don't believe that's changed. That's exactly the same.
Do you think not enough people who practice real estate understand the just level of anxiety that people go through when they're even selling, let alone buying?
Yeah, look, I think there's also a lot of people who practice real estate that do understand as well. That's the case. There's some people out there with a lot of empathy in our industry, but obviously there's a lot of people who don't as well. They can be quite transactional.
Okay, fair enough. You will have an open home tomorrow in Carina, no doubt. It might be the first one, it might be the fourth one. There'll be a fair amount of shoes taken off at the door. How do you go about helping somebody buy a home?
Well, one of our great challenges, for want of a better words, is to obtain the feedback that we need from buyers when we do the callbacks. A lot of people won't answer the phone. And I understand that, by the way, because I probably wouldn't either if I was in their boat. But helping them buy a home, whether that's that home that they came through at the open home tomorrow or something else in a month or two down the track when they're actually ready to buy, if they liaised with me to let me know where they're at, what it is that they're looking for, what their budget is, and where they're at in the process, and what their drivers are, I'd be able to point them in the right direction, whether that be a home that I've got for sale or one that somebody else has for sale that's up the road. So that I think communicating with the agent is a big thing. That said and done, I understand why people won't communicate with us guys. I do get it. I totally get it, and I probably would be the same. But it would help them immensely if they communicated with us.
Even if you didn't like the property?
Yes, because we might have something else moving forward.
Okay, I'll come back to. I've got a question for you about how buyers can help themselves to end this podcast. So I'll come back to that point. I was going to ask you a question about what mistakes you see buyers in the market make. A lot of what we try and talk about on this show is kind of shortening the time that they have to answer their phone when a real estate agent rings them back on a Saturday, right? And spend less Saturdays in the market, buy something well, buy it earlier, enjoy your life again, right? The answer to this question can't be answer your phone when a real estate agent rings, but what is another sort of mistake that you see a lot of buyers make that ideally you can help coach them through it and get out of it early?
Sure, and please, anybody listening to this, take this as a helpful hint. It's nothing but a helpful hint. One of the biggest mistakes that I see coming from the buyer's end is when there's a property that we've advertised online, they simply put through an inquiry on realestate.com with a first name, an email address, and push the button saying price guide. So us guys as agents, we do want to help. In general, we want to help. That's our job.
I agree.
If we just receive that through realestate.com, first thing we're going to think is that a bot?
Okay.
Is there really a person behind that?
Yeah.
We don't need another first name and an email address to be captured into our database. We don't need that. So maybe go a little bit further when you inquire with the agent, and don't see the agent as your enemy. The agent is here to help. We're not here just to sell the home.
Okay. Walk me through then the antithesis of the first name, email address and price guide. What is a great buyer inquiry?
Hi, Craig. 15 Smith Street looks wonderful. Wondering if you'd be able to give me any comparable sales to help us with the price guide. Will the seller look at something prior to auction? Feel free to call.
Okay. And would you get that in a phone call, an email, text message? Your phone's going to blow up after this episode comes out, by the way. People are going to be like, oh, I will call it.
Great. I'm happy to talk. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't expect people to call us off a realestate.com ad. I get it from email. They might be at work. They may not have time to call us during the day. But just explaining what the nature is of the inquiry, I think it helps all selling agents. I really do. Rather than just ticking the box saying price guide or rates, levies and fees. Yeah. Quite often the rates, levies and fees are in the written description of the advertisement anyhow.
Particularly when it's your listing. I feel like there's, if anyone from realestate.com.au is listening to this podcast, which I'm sure there is, perhaps putting something in the box to suggest what might be a good inquiry for the agent rather than just having those 4 buttons and hoping somebody ticks them might be a good step in helping to coach the masses through, because I'm sure not everybody who's looking at property on realestate.com is listening to this. You sell a lot of houses every single year. What do you think about selling off market?
Oh, Sam, it's a question that I wondered if you would come up with. All right, so I'll talk you through my thought process with off-market. I think off-market definitely would apply very well in the prestigious end of the market. And I put an asterisk there and say that the market that I work in, the areas that I work are basically 1 to 2 million. So that's not what's called the luxury market, even though it is luxury. That's a lot of money, but it's not the luxury market. I can really see the place for off-market in the luxury end, the 5 million plus end. Quite often the sellers of those properties want anonymity. They might be high profile or whatever. So they don't want every man and his dog walking through their open homes, and I get that with them. Where I deal is more of a mass market. I'm in the middle ring suburbs where there's a lot more properties for sale. Circumstances will obviously drive off-market sales at times. Depending upon the owner's situation, off-market is the right thing. But from my end, I never rest comfortably if a property hasn't hit the open market. It doesn't sit with me. I actually think it's great for a lot of people, an off-market sale. I think it's great for the agent. It's great for the buyer. But if I had to live within my own truth within myself, I don't sleep right afterwards because the property hasn't been tested on the open market.
Okay, fair enough. And I think
Sorry if that's a long-winded answer.
No, I think that's probably a very contextual answer as to why people have an expectation of seeing more perhaps away from realestate.com or otherwise. And I agree with you. Like if you're going about selling a 4-bed, 2-bath family house in Carina and it's got a swimming pool or otherwise, you know that there's going to be a lot of people there. And rightly or wrongly, most of the people who listen to this show are looking to buy a house, so they don't like hearing that someone is trying to get the most money possible, but that is the reality of the real estate market. And I think we buy plenty of properties off market where we feel like we've paid a premium price, even though there wasn't competition. The threat of competition is what got us to that point. We've also bought plenty on and off market where we thought, this isn't bad. We're all pretty happy here. Feels our side of fair. Let's go and do it. So I think you're exactly right. It is contextual. It's based on circumstance. It's based on property or asset type, if you want to call it that. And there's no one way to skin a cat.
No, look, I've had endless situations where people have offered pre-market, pre-auction, if I could use that, and And I've stood firm because of my own belief system and taken it right the way through to the closing date, whatever that may be. And that person who offered pre-market has ended up the winner. And I'm really happy for them. But myself as the selling agent, I also then put my head on the pillow comfortably at night, knowing that I've done everything in my power. And it isn't always getting the right price, getting the highest price. There might be other factors that go with that as well.
I'll give you an interesting example in reverse of that. We purchased a property at auction a couple of weeks ago, and we saw it on the first open home. Our guys loved it. And I said to them, if you're to buy this in the next 3 weeks before the third Saturday at 11 a.m, you're going to have to pay something pretty silly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we will have to pay that on the day. I think we'll pay probably the high side of market value. You know, what will feel expensive, but certainly not the number that you can afford. And I think that's probably knowing the agent, she's very good, knowing the only way that we were going to get it bought pre-market was to put down that loose offer.
Yep.
And ask them to trust me, which is always a big conversation to have when you find something you like and you say, hey, you might save some money by waiting 2.5 weeks. And we did. We didn't buy it for their most, which was nice. We paid the money for sure, but it wasn't the offer that we would have made pre-auction, knowing that we would have had to have been not just above the comparables, but above the market. So it can work in both ways, I think, particularly with an auction. I'm going to ask you a question about an auction now because another thing that we say to all of our clients is the best way to buy a house is a one-to-one negotiation with Craig and a seller where we're all kind of friendly and we're hashing it out and we want this, we want to pay this, and we go about our business in a nice way until there's an agreement and everyone's happy and it's fair.
Yep.
The next way to buy a house, at least in our opinion, is at auction because it's transparent. This market does not need competition. It's there. It needs transparency. It needs fairness. It needs people to understand where everyone else is. And I think that's why we're seeing more and more auctions, even not from traditionally auction agents. What's your opinion on auctions? Do you agree? The worst way to buy a house, by the way, is best and final offers by 12 o'clock on Tuesday where you don't know where everyone is. And sadly, that is what so many people suffer through every week.
You have summed up my thoughts in one.
All right, thank you. I knew we were going to get along. Yeah.
You have everything you've said there is my belief system 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that you've said.
So when you sit down with a seller and you're saying, hey, this is what I think for your house and why, can you walk them through and can you walk us and the listeners through then how you would expect to manage buyers through an auction campaign or manage a negotiation if it is going to be one-to-one?
Yeah, sure. If I could start with the auction campaign and back to what you said there, the transparency around the auction campaign. I also think it helps the buyers where they can control their own narrative as well. They can take control. Price. That's right. They can take control and they know what's going on. So the best and finals with a closing date isn't a bad thing. The problem is no two real estate agents have the same process.
Agreed.
So that becomes very confusing for the public that are trying to buy. And that doesn't mean that anybody's process is wrong. It's just that nobody's is the same. We've all got a different style with best and final offers. So if you're a buyer that's been through the mill 5 times with best and finals, you've had 5 different processes and it's doing your head in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas with the auctions, there may be differences there, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarities. That roll up 10 o'clock Saturday morning on site, register to bid. That part doesn't change. Somewhere along the line, people will be holding a paddle. So I like the consistency for everybody with the auction process. And I think that applies to the sellers as well, that the sellers get a transparent process as well, where they can look out the window at everybody in the backyard and actually watch what the market is willing to pay for their property at that time on that day at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. It's great for both because of the transparency of it all.
How many would you say, how many of your listings every year, percentage-wise, would you sell auction versus private treaty?
Over 50% of them are auctions, and that could easily be growing as well.
And is that because of that transparent element? It's a better way to not be a dickhead as a real estate agent. You get a great result. Everyone knows where it is. Fair playing field. 100%.
Yep, I just believe in it for that method. I really do. I love the outcome. And yes, you can still sell before. You mentioned that situation a little earlier on. If somebody does want to come along and put an offer on the table that really incentivises the seller, they can do that.
You think about it.
Yes, you think about it.
But it's always a big price.
But yeah, that's right. But on the only thing about that though is it can confuse the buyers. Again, they're hearing yes, the seller may take an offer prior to auction. Will they or won't they? May. It's a bit of a confusing word. In a lot of ways, you're better off just taking it right through to auction.
And is that your dialogue? So you meet a group of buyers on the weekend, and it is an obvious question that everybody asks, guilty as charged.
Understandably.
Right? Is there and the question that we would pose is there an intention to sell prior? Because it's a bit more direct. It's like, do they need to go, or otherwise, particularly if it's staged and it feels like it's a vacant property.
Yep.
And depending on that answer, we'll either book in the date if we like it, or we'll try and accelerate things probably through the second week of the campaign, because they need feedback to know what a good offer looks like. Do you say may, or do you just say yes or no?
I'm leaning towards yes or no.
Okay.
I've said may, of course. I've said may. But I lean towards, when I start the campaign, my mind is always, we're going right through to auction day.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then it's feedback from there.
And then it's feedback from there. That's exactly right.
Cool.
But I'd prefer to take it all the way through. And if it doesn't sell on auction day, it doesn't sell on auction day. That's not the end of the world for
part
everybody.
of the process. Yep. Okay. You mentioned before you see a couple of little mistakes that buyers make along the way, one of them being not talking enough to real estate agents or not answering the phone when they ring. The question I want to ask you to wrap things up today is, what is your one tip for someone who wants to buy a house this weekend, but the answer can't be pick up telephone?
No, it won't be pick up telephone. Or what's my one tip? Look, sorry to give this as such a broad answer, but it does differ because the processes are going to be different from house to house, agent to agent that they're dealing with. The one... Well, I would urge everybody to use a buyer's agent.
Thank you.
And this is an advertisement for Happy Buyers Club, by the way. I truly believe that people should engage buyer's agents. That's one thing that they can do. But if in the absence of that, they really need to ask the real estate agent, or let the real estate agent know that they have an interest in the home. What is your process? What is your process with offers from this point forward?
Okay.
Could you please tell me what the process is going to be? And then work in with it from there. I think that I could say things such as have the best conditions that you can possibly have, shorten your finance to 7 days, or even better, waive the finance altogether. But not everybody's comfortable with that, and I understand. Waive the cooling off period. Ask the agent if there's a building and pest. You can do all of those things by all means. Put your offer in writing. Now, as I'm thinking, as I'm on the run here, Sam,
if
I had to say something, is don't try and hide your interest in the property from the agent. The agent wants to believe that you want the home because he or she wants to negotiate with the buyer who most wants the home, not just to get the most amount of money, but because they know that if it goes under contract, it will probably go through to settlement, and that's what all agents want.
Very good. Craig Loudon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam.